see this machine over here? This one is qualified to a Navy standard. This one's qualified to an Air Force standard. This one's qualified to a NASA standard, right? So it's not just that we need a standard, we really need leadership.
I'm here today with Lauren Tubising and Mark Shaw with the National Institute for Aviation Research. What do you believe SAE's role is in creating performance-based qualifications?
I'll give you a quick anecdote. So one of the things I'm doing this year is I'm traveling around the U.S. and I'm visiting as many metal additive suppliers as I possibly can. I'm at about 20, most of them laser powder bed fusion, but some DED and some others along the way. One of the very strong messages I'm hearing over and over again, as we stand in the middle of these manufacturing floors with the machines humming all around us, it's sort of the frustrated, vice president, president, owner, operations manager, whoever's giving the tour, and says, see this machine over here? This one is qualified to a Navy standard. This one's qualified to an Air Force standard. This one's qualified to a NASA standard, right? So it's not just that we need a standard, we really need leadership that says this is going to be the way that we have confidence, so that NASA, Navy, and FAA, everyone else can have confidence in the performance. And we're helping the suppliers so they don't have to do it 5 times. They have one qualification, the AMS 7032, for instance, and then everyone is confident in that result.
Can you help us understand, the relevant government and commercial stakeholders when you think about part qualification?
Stakeholders. So there's a long list of stakeholders. That was the side. I've been talking to a lot of people in the 6 months. So let me just kind of summarize them by topic, and then maybe we can dive in on a few. So regulators, if we're talking about something that's flying or sub-safe or medical, there's a regulator involved. And whatever this qualification standard is, no matter how much I'm convinced of it or the standards committee is convinced of it, if the regulator doesn't recognize it as being safe to move forward, we're not going to go anywhere with that standard. So regulators, I always start there, number one. The second is the standards organizations. As Mark knows, I've gotten to know him very well over the last year or so, because we've been spending a lot of time with SAE talking about, okay, once we establish this and we get agreement across the industry, like we need this in a public place. Like having it on Mark Shaw's hard drive is not going to be helpful to anyone else. So we need to really provide this in a way that's a public standard. So the standards organizations, and honestly, I've been talking to ASTM, AWS, even DoD, who has some unique, right? So who are those people that are going to manage and control that standard? Suppliers, as I said, I'm visiting 20 different suppliers. We don't want to create a standard that the regulator is happy with, because I'm doing 200 coupons and they're all tensile and fatigue and fracture, but no one can afford it, or you can't actually execute it. So, a stakeholder we often forget are the people at the pointy end of the spear who's got to go make stuff. So they've been a real big part of this conversation as well.
I think you with what I would think is probably one of the most important stakeholders, and that's the person integrating all of those different stakeholders together. Like Mark Shaw mentioned earlier, he's been visiting all of these suppliers. They're pointing at 5, 6 different machines, talking about how they're having to qualify to different standards for each of those machines. That is extremely expensive. Back to, how do we democratize this? How do we turn this installed base that we have within the United States from a capability to an actual capacity that we can leverage? And the way that we do that is by connecting all of these stakeholders and getting to a consensus. And I'm not going to say that everyone's going to agree, but bringing everybody together from their different silos and bring them all, at least so their silos are close enough together that we're working together. And that's not an easy feat. And that's something that there is a team of people. Mark and I are not the only ones. There's a team across industry, suppliers, government, really working to do this. But that's what's needed to happen. It's the alignment of the regulators, the standards committees, industry, DoD, customers, acquisitions, getting all of those people to come together and to align so that we can actually turn all of this capability. There is a lot of capability out there. There are a lot of additive machines that people have. But how do you turn that to a capacity for the DoD? How do you turn that to an actual capability that we can leverage within the station? And I think that the stakeholder analysis, Mark got spot on. I would just say the one thing that we need is that integrator to get all those stakeholders together aligned so we're all marching in the same vector.
Good point. And I think about, once performance-based qualification is established, what does that end zone look like? What outcomes are we expecting to achieve at that point? I'd love to hear your response to that question.
I'm happy to go. I mean, we're probably talking future, like the dream. I think the pie in the sky dream, if you're thinking of like application for our warfighter, is they're downrange, they need a part, and they call somebody and they print the part and they have the part. Are we going to get there for, maybe propulsion components and be able to do that within 5 hours? Within 2 years? I don't know, but that's the dream, and that's what we're all marking towards. But I think really at a high level, I think additive, the dream would be purchasing a part, would just be purchasing a part. And does somebody leverage castings and forgings or additive manufacturing? It's whatever makes the most sense at that point in time, either financially, taking into consideration timeline and what capability we have. So I think that is my end goal. And what does that look like? Is that additive is just another manufacturing method that we use, and it's nothing special to people who are actually using it. I think if that's my vision goal of performance-based qualification, that would be it.
One of my favorite sayings is metal is metal. So that's what you just said.
Metal is metal. I don't know who taught me that. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. The day it's not different is the day we're successful. Right now, because we're handling it with kid gloves, it's really inhibited, and maybe for all the appropriate reasons, but we need to get to a place where it doesn't feel special anymore. So my vision is maybe a little even more short term, is that I think of what we can achieve within the next couple of years is a qualification standard that's approved and accepted across regulatory agencies. So again, I'm a supplier. I have Inconel 625 in one of my machines, and it doesn't matter what machine it is, pick your favorite machine manufacturer. But on my website, I can say that I am AMS 7032 OQ qualified to Inconel 625. So now when the Defense Logistics Agency is trying to buy that, what would have been traditionally a cast Inconel 625 part, they can look and see, oh, here's a list of suppliers that have met a minimal standard. Is the part qualified? No, but I can go in now from a qualified supplier and have confidence that they've met some sort of universal standard that has a level of acceptability. I mean, that's my short-term goal. And so when I say, within 3 years, that's really the goal, to be able to have an industry that's available and an accepted standard.